Welcome to Fantasy Focus. Today's podcast is presented by Geico. You can watch us every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN's Twitter account, plus our YouTube feed and the ESPN Fantasy Facebook page. You can also watch us on the ESPN app, and you can download Fantasy Focus wherever you get your podcast. Happy Monday. It is October 4th. Field, Matthews,
Eventually, we're going to get to the point where me, Daniel, Stephania, and Field will come to your house and just talk directly to you. I feel like we've gotten pretty much every distribution channel. I mean, except TV and radio. But other than those two, we have everything else.
Right.
And now we're at the point where we'll just come to your house.
Where will we start? What would be the first place we'd visit? Whose house?
I mean, whoever wants to come over. I mean, whoever wants to invite us over.
Oh, okay.
Whoever needs us there. Not at any of our houses.
We should get one of those houses like the Heisman house.
Yeah.
And have it be
That
the
would be
06010 house.
I like the idea of an
Could we convert
06010
one of
house.
Matthews into the Heisman house?
I call my own bathroom. Trust me, this is for everyone's benefit.
And on that note.
On that note, let's move forward to the
Just
injuries,
saying.
right? No better way to pivot than when things get uncomfortable and a little bit awkward. Let's go to the injuries because we
Can I
have
tell you, by the way, Daniel, real quickly? Just this is for me and Daniel. You guys can sit with this out. Daniel.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a man of few talents, right?
Correct.
Like very few
few.
talents.
Okay,
very
thank you.
few.
Very
few talents. But if I were to say that there was one talent that I had, it is making things awkward and uncomfortable. And I feel like my talent is to go right up to the line where it is uncomfortable and awkward and then take one step over.
Yeah.
I feel like that's sort of my superpower.
It's like if that line was a bear, you would just stand right next to it and just poke it the
Right.
entire time.
Yeah.
Is what you're doing.
Not the entire time, just enough to get it. Like if the bear was like, whatever. You do it one more time, I'm annoyed.
Now I'm annoyed.
And then I do it one
Right.
more time.
Yeah.
And then
Agreed.
I run.
Hey, how about this? Ready?
And then I run and I'm just like, Field, you deal with it.
I've got it. You ready for this one?
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the Bears, Stephania, let's get to our injury recap. And with that, we begin with the Chicago Bears. It's David Montgomery, who was running magnificently yesterday, has looked really good all season long. Unfortunately, went down with an injury.
I know, 2 touchdowns on the board before he goes down with an injury late in the game, and he looked to be in a great deal of pain. Serious injury, it seems, for David Montgomery. Adam Schefter reporting this morning that the team does not believe that he tore his ACL, but they are doing further testing, and so we await the updates.
I spoke with Jeff Dickerson last night, and he said, and you
Name
always
dropper.
have to be careful. You're like, yeah, dude, I was texting with like Brad Pitt last week. Like,
Yeah.
let me talk to Jeff Dickerson. who,
We
by the way,
FaceTime,
is-
to be clear.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right.
He likes to look at me.
for perspective. So Stephania.
For him to he's like, this is why I
Wow,
work
that
out.
was
This is why I
great,
eat well
Field.
and healthy because I don't want to turn into that.
Matthew, I'm feeling bad about myself. I want to see your face for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Then he's just like, I got this. Okay.
Stephania, I will just note that, and you have to be careful sometimes when reading too much into what teammates think. But you know, like in the locker room, there's a pretty down mood surrounding David Montgomery. So the good news is, doesn't sound like it'll be an ACL tear, but that, of course, is one we'll keep an eye on with more information potentially available later on today. I want to ask you, did you happen to catch what's going on with Damian Williams as well?
I did not.
Okay, I'll fill it in then. He is dealing with a quad issue. We don't know much about the specifics of it, and I don't know that the alarm is being sounded yet here for Damian Williams, but he's got a quad issue as of right now, and this is 11:03 a.m. on Monday, Eastern time zone. The Bears have just one other running back on the roster. It's Khalil Herbert, their 6th-round pick out of Virginia Tech. Did he finish at Virginia Tech, or did he start at Virginia Tech? Anyways, not important right now. So we could have a potential situation here brewing in Chicago. We'll have more information probably on the waiver show tomorrow. Waivers, of course, run Tuesday into Wednesday night. Hopefully we have the information you need to make an informed waiver claim going into that process. Stephania, the Washington football team got a win yesterday over the Atlanta Falcons, but it was not without a couple of notable losses, specifically on offense. Logan Thomas.
Right. Logan Thomas hurt on the first possession of the game for Washington, so never even had a chance to be really involved in the game. Pulled up with a hamstring injury, signaled for help pretty much immediately, and that's never a good sign. Obviously, we have to wait until he gets results of the testing he will undergo today, expecting an MRI for him, and we will hear more about the severity at that point. But you always expect at least a 1-game absence with a hamstring injury. Just sort of plan for that.
Yeah, and we talk about often how, with tight ends, when they get hurt, it's not frequent that you can just take the next man up on that roster and replace him, expect comparable production. Certainly the case in Washington. If you have Logan Thomas, you're probably hitting the waiver wire for somebody else. We'll have names along those lines tomorrow. Stephania, sorry to do this, but it's time now for our weekly 49ers update as your starting quarterback is now dealing with a calf issue.
This was really strange. As you might be aware, I tend to focus on the 49ers games. And, Jimmy Garoppolo played the entire first half, but come to find out afterward, we were surprised. He comes out, he does not start in the second half. Turns out that he was injured on the first series. He believed that he felt like he was stepped on, but haven't had the opportunity to go back and find that. There were several people who were observing the game who said they haven't seen that moment, but that was the sensation he described. It felt like it got worse. It tightened up more as the game went on. He also felt like it was impacting his throwing. So at some point, if the injury is changing the way you're able to play, then ultimately you come out of the game. It's what the 49ers did. They had Trey Lance go in, and as you know, how the second half finished. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to undergo more testing and MRI this morning. It's worth noting this is the same leg. He had the high ankle sprain in last year that cost him a great deal of time. So you just don't like seeing injuries in that close a proximity. He did not think it was his Achilles, but he had pain going from the calf down to the Achilles. So I would at least anticipate, based on Jimmy Garoppolo's own words, where he said, I hope it's a couple of weeks kind of thing, hoping that it wouldn't be more than that, that you're going to see Trey Lance at least next week for sure, and perhaps longer.
I want to have the conversation about Trey Lance as a potential waiver wire addition in greater depth tomorrow. Matthew, you're not going to be with us tomorrow, so just wanted to get your quick thoughts here. Again, we always talk about this. It's not like people need to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. He was not a starter in one quarterback leagues. But given how athletic Trey Lance is, the upside, the offense he plays in, would you be making a priority ad of Trey Lance this week on the waiver wire?
I would. I mean, again, sort of depends on your needs, right? If you just lost David Montgomery, you probably need a running back. But by the way, Damian Williams may be rostered already in your league, for example, right? And so to me, I think Trey Lance is important for a few reasons. Number one is tremendous upside. Mm-hmm. I thought he played poorly from an NFL perspective. I thought he looked like a
thrower, at least.
Yeah, he looked like a rookie quarterback thrown into a rookie backup quarterback thrown into a situation that he hadn't gotten a lot of reps for. That's what he looked like. And yet, he finishes with over 20 fantasy points.
Yeah.
In a half. And so that just sort of gives you the idea of that's the potential of this kid in that offense, especially, not throwing shade at any other NFL coach, but I believe Kyle Shanahan, if Trey Lance is a starter, will coach him up. We'll scheme a play design.
Game plan.
Game plan. Thank you. A game plan. We'll design a game plan. It's like I'm all crazy. You have to understand. Whatever. We need a gif of that. All right. But
short-circuited first.
Anyway, Kyle Shanahan will design a game plan for him. He will get all the first team reps. He will coach him up. And yes, Field, given his dual threat ability, given the offensive line in San Francisco, given the weapons he's going to have, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and a good run game, Trey Sermon I thought actually looked pretty good yesterday.
He did.
So, yes, I think Trey Lance becomes a priority ad because here's the thing, even if you don't need a quarterback, someone in your league might, and you could roll with, potentially, right? And you could roll with Trey Lance, and then you trade them, whatever. You have Josh Allen. If you have needs elsewhere, I'm always a believer in, unless you have a desperate need at a position, adding the best player available to give yourself the most options to maneuver your team. Because it doesn't mean you necessarily have to trade the guy you're picking up. You could trade somebody else on your roster that the guy you're picking up fills in for.
Guys, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I've been told that Stephania has an update on Joe Mixon.
What?
Yeah, well, we saw Joe Mixon look uncomfortable with his ankle late in Thursday night's game. Adam Schefter now reporting that it's a low-grade ankle sprain that will leave him week to week. Here's the thing. Flashback to last year when he had a foot injury, a midfoot sprain, and we were week to week for almost 7 weeks, I think. So we don't tend to get a lot of information out of Cincinnati. Week to week is a very loose term, but I would definitely be making plans to sub out for Joe Mixon.
which I would think that you'd see some Chris Evans, but Samaje Perine would be the guy that I would think would get the majority.
Workhorse,
would be the guy that get the majority of work. And like the way that offense runs, listen, their offensive line is playing better than expected, and the way that offense runs, like their running backs play a lot of snaps and get some high percentage touches, and so waiting to see what happens with David Montgomery, but Samaje Perine I think would be a priority add as well.
We'll certainly have him on the waiver wire column. He was not up there yet, but that's why I don't turn it in until Monday afternoons, and then we get to the names that you actually need to know. Stephania, let's keep going.
You know what?
here.
I'm going to use that excuse as to when I'm late on my column. That's why. That's why.
You're not late in your column ever, are you?
What?
You're not ever late in your column.
I'm late in my column every week.
Okay.
Every week.
I heard.
Every week.
Stephania, Teddy Bridgewater.
It's 6,000 words, people. It's 6,000 words.
You don't have any
and you know
trouble
what? And I care
speaking
about it.
6,000
Here's-
words, though.
what?
You don't have any trouble speaking
Nailed
6,000
it.
words.
Hold on, Matthew. We got to
Yeah,
keep
but
going.
you know
We
what?
gotta go.
The column I care about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this stuff
Oh,
is
so
like
you don't?
whatever.
That's good to know. That's really reassuring. Stephania, let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater here for a second. He left right before the first half, and we did not see him again.
Yeah, it took some big shots over the course of the first half, but it was the on his final throw, the one that he took that knocked him out for the rest of the game in the concussion protocol. And as we know, that's a day-to-day affair.
Okay, that is, and for now, it's going to be Drew Lock. He was the player that took over for Teddy Bridgewater yesterday. You know, I thought yesterday was certainly a byproduct of no Teddy Bridgewater in the second half, but that was a reality check game for the Broncos, right? We talked about this. Like, it was, let's learn about Denver. They played three teams who at the time were all winless. Like, they got manhandled yesterday by a pretty clearly better team. Denver's good, but I think that yesterday was a bit more of a, like what we would typically expect from this Denver team going forward. Like, would you be surprised?
Can I ask you this? Like, you know, late great Dennis Green, is that they are who we thought they were?
Yeah, like they're like don't you think they're like a 7-9 win team this year?
Yeah, something like that. I think maybe a little bit better.
I know 7-9, right? Like, would you
Okay.
be surprised if they finished 9-8?
No, would not be surprised if it finished 9-8. Would not be surprised if it finished 10-7.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
So
I mean,
7 to
again,
10.
like
How about that?
it's a good. Here's the thing. They also lost Teddy Bridgewater for the second half. Yeah. But you know, look, they can run the ball. They can move the ball.
A little bit.
Not
really.
They have a good defense.
Yeah.
They have a good deep. Listen, Baltimore's a better team. Is Baltimore a better team? Baltimore's a better team.
No doubt. That's what. Yeah.
I'm just saying. I think Denver is better than they probably got credit for in the preseason.
Yeah. 7-10. 7-10 wins.
We
seems
agree
about
on that.
realistic for me. With
We agree on
Baltimore,
that.
With the Denver
They
Broncos.
are who we thought they were.
Stephania, on Sunday morning, we got a bit of an update on Tua Tagovailoa. What can you tell us there?
Well, we heard that he is expected back in week 6, would be his first game eligible to return from injured reserve. Now, I would just point out that this game is in London, and there's sort of two elements to being when you're able to come back. One is from the health perspective, and I think clearly from the health perspective, they expect him to be ready to go week 6. In fact, I think he probably could have been ready sooner, but using the IR as a management tool is something that I think teams are doing more and more, and it certainly bought him some more healing time. The next question is functionality. Can you throw the way you need to? Can you participate in 4 quarters of football? And can you do it effectively? And that's something they would have to decide really early before they travel to London.
How about Will Fuller, who left yesterday's game as well?
All we know is that it's a hand injury right now, and no more detail on that yet. I would expect he's in the pool of players to get more evaluation today.
I've got some news for everybody here on the show that's listening right now. If you're starting a Dolphins player right now, unless it's their defense or their kicker, like, good luck. Like, I suppose Mike Gesicki as well, who's been busy over the past couple of weeks, but like, this Dolphins offense is an absolute abomination right now. We'll talk about Myles Gaskin more on the show in a little bit, but this Dolphins offense is about as tough of a watch as there is. I'm not sure that Tua is the long-term answer for Miami. I know that's the big question they have to answer right now, but man, do they miss him with the way that Jacoby Brissett and that offense is functioning at the moment.
Devontae Parker had a nice game-ish, you know. He was fine, you know. But, like, is there literally any Dolphin you have confidence starting on a week-to-week basis? Maybe Gesicki, given how bad he's been good for 3 weeks, and that offense and the position is so dire. But other than him,
Confidence, though. I mean, you still don't have confidence in
No
Mike
one's a must
Gesicki
start.
either.
No one is a must.
It's one of these. It's like
Yeah. Correct.
yeah, like you're for people that can't see. I was like basically closing my eyes and, like, you know, with a look of disgust, pressing the submit button on a lineup that had one of these Dolphins in it.
Right, and for those that can't see, it was an absolutely electric rendition of that act. Like, it was really impressive. Stephania, let's go back to you, though.
I'm a master thespian.
Says who?
says the casting director of the highest grossing movie of all time
Field.
worldwide,
Don't
of which
don't
I was
engage.
in.
Field. That's on you. Field.
I'm just saying.
Literally
like,
never heard that
I've
before.
literally been in one movie. I've been in one movie my entire life, and that movie happens to have been seen by more people than anyone in the universe. And by the way, and people were paying good hard-earned money. Again, it's the highest grossing movie. People were paying their hard-earned money to see me on the big screen.
You didn't even write your way into your own movie that you wrote? You weren't in Crocodile Dundee?
Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and the rest of my co-stars. But yeah.
Why wouldn't you write yourself into Crocodile Dundee?
You know what? I thought about it, but I didn't feel like as an author, I'm so pure to the page.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't feel like there was a role.
actually have
please.
a
Oh my
super
God.
busy
That I didn't
show
feel like there was a role that was
today, so-
appropriate for me.
Yeah.
But obviously, like without me, that's a very pivotal scene in that movie doesn't happen. And then there's the Loki spinoff. Like honestly, like am I the most important person in the MCU? That's not for me to say.
Right.
Other people are saying it. It's not for me to say. Other people can judge that.
Literally no one said that before. Stephania, let's keep it rolling because we do have a ton to get to today, and Mondays are our busiest show for a reason. The next injury update is Gronk, who did not travel with the Bucs to New England. And again, despite some reporting last week that he was going to definitely play against the Patriots, it sounds like it might be more than just a 1 week absence.
Right. And we've talked before about how the initial x-rays don't typically reveal much of anything. X-rays are relatively limited in what they can tell you about rib fractures. And in fact, it was a CAT scan that revealed that he had, according to Bruce Arians, who told reporters after the game, 3 or 4 fractures and a little pinch in the lungs. I'm not sure what that is, but you can get a lung contusion, lung bruising in association with rib fractures. Here's the thing. We talked on Fantasy Football Now about the data over the last 5 years from fantasypredictors.com that shows that if you have 1 or 2 rib fractures, you tend to miss on average 1 to 2 games. And if you have more than 3 rib fractures, that absence goes up on average from 4 to 8 games. So not saying that will be the time frame, but that's what the last 5 years of these type of injuries have shown us.
Last night we saw the 2 Bucs other tight ends, O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate, step up into more prominent roles. However, just 6 combined targets, and I know it was wet, but a couple of notable drops last night, at least one from Cameron Brate, I should say. Stephania, last injury update here is Tony Jones, who is the clear-cut number 2 to Alvin Kamara now in New Orleans.
Right, so the question is who's going to be the next clear-cut number 2 to Alvin Kamara, because Tony Jones suffered an ankle injury, and I would expect him to be out for several weeks.
Okay, that's interesting information there. We'll keep an eye on how the Saints backfield shakes up from here. I just want to say something quickly, an observation about Alvin Kamara this year that I don't know what to make of it quite yet. Here's the good news. Alvin Kamara is carrying the football more than ever.
More than ever.
26 carries yesterday.
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, he now has 3 out of 4 games this year with at least 20 carries. Prior to this season, he had 1 such game. Here's the bad news. They're not throwing the ball anymore.
Not at all.
Not at all. And I got to tell you, as much as last year me was saying, like, this is going to be so great when the Saints give Alvin Kamara the ball 20 times as a runner per game, I am, like, yearning for the days of Alvin Kamara getting 8 carries for 24 yards on top of 9 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Like, this new version of how the Saints are deploying Alvin Kamara, I get why they're doing it in the construct of their offense. But for fantasy, man, this certainly feels like bad. It does. I mean, and again, there's like 2 good running backs in fantasy right now, so I'm not going to tell you it's not like a must start or something.
Hey, let's not bury the idea, too, that Alvin Kamara is not the guy that's getting the goal line work in that offense either when Taysom Hill put in 2 from inside the 5 last week.
It doesn't
Taysom
change.
Vulture Hill.
It changes nothing about where I'm ranking him. I should say in the category of must starts. Like, he's still a must start every single week. The volume is ridiculous. And he's still having Kamara, but like another iron in the fire.
If you played a quick name game, and I always demand we should get the name game drops, we should do it more. Daniel always refuses. I don't know. Daniel hates the fans.
Right.
I'm a fan favorite. Everyone knows, and they're begging for it. But very quickly, like think about who would you rather have than Alvin Kamara? You'd rather have
Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley after what we saw yesterday.
I think so.
Yep.
Jones. Aaron Jones. Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott.
Zeke Elliott for sure.
Dalvin Cook.
Austin Eckler.
Yes.
6 guys right there, right?
Right.
I mean, if Christian McCaffrey's back by week 6, which Stephania told me 2.2 games on average missed for hamstring, I was paying attention.
You were.
2.2 games missed. Like
Obviously, you'd rather have McCaffrey.
Yeah. Tough times right now without catching passes.
I'm just saying, like
Still a must start,
but I mean, like he's, you know what he is? He's like they've made him into Nick Chubb. They've literally made him into Nick Chubb.
That was one of my other notes for. I don't know if we're gonna get to it or not, but one of my other notes about Nick Chubb is that like as great as Nick Chubb is as a runner, is Nick Chubb a touchdown dependent RB1?
He's a he's a touchdown dependent elite RB1 because I think he still gets enough volume to be, I know. I know Kareem Hunt's been better the last couple weeks
this year.
No, I know. I know.
That's because he's got such a great insurance back behind him, Field. And speaking of insurance,
Daniel, you are on fire right now. Do you own or rent your home?
Yeah.
Maybe. I'll let you know when my divorce is finalized.
Wow.
Might be no.
Do you need to live with me in one of my houses?
Either way, one of us is going to need insurance on the house, Field.
Okay, because I'm telling you, Daniel, I do own a home. I still do as of right now, and it can be hard work. But you know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
College football fans, after an offseason that felt a little more off than usual, Fansville and Dr. Pepper invite you to celebrate because college football is back, and so are the fans. Yes, it's the most wonderful time of the year again, the season of Saturdays, when rivalries run deep and nacho cheese dip runs even deeper. So crack open an ice cold Dr. Pepper, warm up your corn-tossing arm, and return to glory with an all-new season of Fansville by Dr. Pepper, the one that fans deserve.
Time now for us to get to the Week 4 big games and whether or not we trust these players going forward. And I'm going to make this one quick here. Deebo Samuel, who has his second 30-plus point fantasy point game yesterday, has been unbelievable this year. I believe he is now leading the NFL in receiving yards. He's seen nearly 11 targets per game for the San Francisco offense in a year when Brandon Ayuk is a ghost. Other pass catchers in this offense have been relatively quiet. George Kittle, better sort of recently, but still not dominant in the way that he has been at points in his past for fantasy. Deebo Samuel, if you don't have him, I mean, he is, now that we're a quarter of the way into the season, he's got to be one of the 5 best values in fantasy drafts, period. He's been unbelievable, Matthew. And somehow, and maybe Stephania knows how, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't he scored 2 touchdowns of like 70 yards where there has not been a defensive player within 50 yards of him? Like the play yesterday from Trey Lance, did they forget that Deebo Samuel was on the team? Like what happened there yesterday?
Yeah. Deebo Samuel, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say Deebo Samuel's been awesome-o.
Oh my gosh.
He's been brilliant-o.
Is he?
Hey, you know what the thing is? Can't win them all, right?
Yeah.
Can't win them all. Yeah, they don't all win.
Here's my question with
Great
Deebo.
Bo?
He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Bo.
But is he going to?
Just add Bo to every word.
I know. I
when
understand.
you describe Deebo.
Divino Big Bobo?
Yeah.
So
Rockin' Bo.
I'll just wait.
He's been Magic Bo.
Come on.
So my question is, do you think that this continues, or do you feel like this is the prime sell-high opportunity on a player that has definitely outperformed where you got him in drafts?
It's a tough one here. And here's the reason why, Daniel, is that like based off how he's performed so far this year, you'd have to be looking for an elite wide receiver 1.
Sure.
But what wide receiver 1 has been good enough this year that you still have confidence, but bad enough relative to the own expectations that you could potentially acquire him at a discount?
That's the right point there, Field, is that I think Deebo Samuel is more valuable on your own roster than he is than whatever you could get from him in return.
Right.
Because
like, what if someone offered you A.J. Brown, who's currently hurt and hasn't been great so far? Why would you take that trade?
Right, exactly.
Right. If you could get Devontae Adams for him, or if you get Tyreek Hill, like let's talk shop. But who's going to make that trade?
Right. So then you're like the other guys that like Deebo Samuel for DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel for Cooper Kupp.
Quick counterpoint. What if
Yes.
you're stacked at wide receiver and he was a guy that you weren't counting on to be one of your starting wide receivers? What kind of a running back would you be able to think potentially?
I would want an RB1.
Yeah, I would think somebody that's in that top. Again, it's going to be hard to get a top 5 or so running back, but you could probably acquire somebody that comes like we talked about those 7 running backs. You could maybe get like an Alvin Kamara,
Jonathan
tier
Taylor.
below him.
Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, maybe.
Najee Harris,
although I think Najee Harris is probably up in that upper tier, but like
Yeah, he's close. Yeah.
But could you, like, if we knew Joe Mixon was playing next week, and we heard the report from Stephania and Adam Schefter earlier in the show, but like if you knew Joe Mixon was playing next week, like that sounds like about right. You know, Joe Mixon maybe like if Chris Carson's usage hadn't been super weird yesterday, or
What the heck,
DeAndre
man?
Swift's usage hadn't been weird, like maybe that range. But I would just say this: he's super talented, Bo, and he's also he's also on an offense that is finding creative ways to use him.
Bo,
exactly. I'm just saying, like, I mean, like, you know,
I got it.
Like, I feel like Trey Lance Bo is going to be looking for Deebo.
No, I got it.
To score Bo.
Let's move on, Bo.
Are you
Let's
sure?
talk about Cordero Patterson.
By the way, if you think I'm dropping this bit after today,
please.
absolutely not.
Dear Lord, Deebo Samuel.
Samuel.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
just do
I
not.
run jokes in the ground like Deebo Samuel runs down touchdowns.
That's
Fair. It's fair.
It's pretty true.
It's fair. Look, he's a super talented guy. Last year, he was a big sleeper for me based on how he'd started. And then, of course, he gets injured in the offseason and everything like that, and slow to get there. And Ayuk actually took over last year. But the talent that we saw his rookie year, the talent we saw at South Carolina is there. Like, it's not like we're like, where'd this come from?
Right.
Like,
right.
Deebo Samuel was a highly talented prospect.
Talk about another guy that you saw talent in 8 years ago that we're now finally seeing in Cordero Patterson.
Right.
Yeah. So Cordero Patterson yesterday had 3 touchdowns, 116 total yards, 34.6 fantasy points. He was like way outsnapped by Mike Davis. I believe he played 23 snaps. I believe. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, the numbers I have, by the way, and this is courtesy of our friend Jared Smola over on Twitter, but Jared claims 30% snaps, 29% routes, 12 opportunities, meaning he had 6 carries, he had 6 targets.
This is absurd. Here's
3
crazy.
touchdowns on 12 opportunities. And by the way, not only is it absurd, but I can tell you part of the reason why it happened. I played against him in like 6 leagues.
Oh,
Of course you
so
did.
you
You
know
know he was
he's
going
You know he went off.
Stephania.
Always.
I have a
Always
crazy stat.
happens.
I have a
Stupid Damian Dabrowski started him against me, you know, in our show league,
Wow,
in the fantasy
how
show
dare he
league.
do that? Wow, sounds like
Yeah, he
Damian's got
rolled
good
me.
instincts, huh?
This
This is a crazy stat for you. You ready for
He
this one?
rolled me like a Deebo.
This one comes courtesy of our friend Barstool Big Cat. Cordell Patterson yesterday had 3 total touchdowns.
Yeah.
Julio Jones, arguably the greatest player in Falcons history, at least amongst offensive players.
Of course, yeah.
Never scored
knew
3
it. I
touchdowns
knew
in a
it.
game. Never.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson has more 3 touchdown games with the Falcons than Julio Jones. That
I don't
is
know why that's
ridiculous.
surprising.
Insane,
Oh,
right?
Some
there
of us
you
have
go.
known
Daniel,
Get
that
off
for a
your
long
high
time.
horse over
jumping
there.
on that.
Now,
Honest.
Daniel,
Stop
this
it.
to me, though, this is
Sell
a
high.
Okay.
Great sell high.
Great
This
sell
might be
high.
The best sell high of the season.
Totally
in
with you.
fantasy football right now, because I don't know what you get for Cordell Patterson right now, but I think it's legit. I think it's like a legit piece, and you could right away get. I mean, you could win that trade.
Counter argument. I have a counter argument to that.
No, great.
Totally disagree. And I'll tell you why.
Wow.
First off, I think most fantasy football managers who have any sense of what they're doing know this.
Okay.
Because not only are we, but every other person that does fantasy football analysis is going to say the same thing. Sell high, sell high. There's no way this can continue, which, by the way, they've been saying for 2 weeks. My argument here is similar to what we were just saying with Deebo Samuel. Obviously, a much different player, much different situation.
Okay.
But I would argue that Cordero Patterson actually has more value on your roster right now than whatever you could get for him. If somebody's willing to trade you something really good for Patterson, by all means, God bless, go do it. I just don't think you're going to get it. I think most people are going to think it's a little bit fluky.
Wow.
And are not going to pony up for him. And I would argue, yes, he has had limited opportunities so far, but he has made the most of them. And then you think about this Atlanta Falcons offense, which is weirdly devoid of playmakers.
Yeah,
I mean,
but hold
like, I
on,
know
but-
they have Ridley and Pitts, right? But, like,
Right.
Mike Davis really hasn't impressed so far this year. Don't you think the performance of Patterson over the last couple of weeks, because while it hasn't been a lot of snaps, it has increased. He is getting
21% or whatever you said it was.
Whatever it was, 29, 30% of snaps. He played 30% of
He
snaps.
played 21 snaps. Mike Davis played 49. Hold on, though, Matthew.
I'm with you, but at some point, doesn't Arthur Smith sit there and go like, you know what? We're having trouble scoring points, but you know one guy that is this versatile guy who's
Honestly,
built
no.
like a brick blank house and is fast as hell.
No. If this was his first or second year in the league, I'd buy it. He's been in the league for like 10 years now. This has always been what we've seen with Cordero Patterson. Why isn't he playing more? And then he never plays more. So let me go back to something, though. You
Okay.
said, like, hey, he's not a sell high because, like, of course you're not going to sell high for a piece that stinks. But if you get a legitimate piece right now for Cordero Patterson, of course you'd be selling high on him. You know that the likelihood of even a disappointing running back, name it, right? Like, I don't know who you think it is, whatever. Whether you think Chris Carson after the way they utilized him yesterday. Like, if someone offers
You're not
you
getting Chris Carson for Cordero Patterson.
hold on. Okay, so what's the offer then? I'm saying if you got a legit
But
piece,
that's my point. You're not getting like to
you
me
might,
like
dude. He's literally scored 3 touchdowns yesterday.
I know, but people
Hold on. You're the one that tends to lean towards people being like more ridiculous than I surmise them to be. Now the tables are turned. I'm telling you, you could get something crazy for Cordero Patterson right now. If you can, do it. 100% do it.
I have Cordero Patterson in a Dynasty League. All three of you are in my Dynasty League. What are you offering me for Cordero Patterson?
Dynasty is a different game.
I've got.
I don't have anything valuable.
I've got Aldrich Rosas.
I got plenty of talent. I'm just not going to give it to you.
No,
let's
talk more
let's
about
keep
this.
moving on.
DJ Moore was awesome yesterday, and
You guys are crazy.
Okay.
Like, no one's trading anything real.
I bet somebody will send some
At
trades.
Fantasy
Cordero
Focus, please
Cordero
send us your
Patterson for
trades.
Josh Jacobs.
I would take Josh Jacobs.
Of course.
course.
You think somebody's accepting that?
Yes. He hasn't played in 3 weeks. Yes, absolutely. All right, let's keep things moving here.
He's playing tonight.
We'll keep final thoughts later. Let's keep things moving here. And just a couple of highlights. DJ Moore yesterday, 8 catches on 12 targets, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's awesome. Must start every single week. Just sometimes you just don't need to overthink it. It's
Matchup proof, right? I mean, would you say after this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like he had a tough matchup. He saw a lot of Trayvon Diggs and got the better of him.
There's a case that the most consequential thing that took place yesterday in fantasy football was Saquon Barkley's effort. He had 2 touchdowns, 126 yards, 5 catches, 29.6 fantasy points. I believe he's RB2 behind only Cordero Patterson.
And you know what? You're welcome, America. There you go. You're welcome.
Hate list?
Hate list. Of course, put him on the hate list.
Yeah.
Played against Cordero Patterson.
Here's the thing.
Put Saquon on the hate list.
No, Cordero Patterson was on the love list. I got that one right.
Oh, okay.
Cordero Patterson actually was. Go back and look. Cordero Patterson was on the love list this week. But no, I'm going to own it. I got this game field so wrong. I had Daniel Jones, Kenny Golladay, and Saquon Barkley all on the hate list. I thought the Saints defense would show up in a way, and they just didn't. And so, 0 for 3. Bad call. I just want to take the L and move on.
Are Saquon
I'm on to
fears-
Cincinnati. Anyway, but Saquon looked great. In a tough matchup.
Are Saquon fears with the injury that we came in, though? Like, Stephania, for what you've seen through the first handful of weeks, do you feel better about him now?
Yes. So let me say, what we always talked about with Saquon was that this was something where the Giants had to sort of manage his workload as he entered the league. And they have. And it's been good. And what we've seen is progress every single week. So there were a couple things we saw yesterday that we hadn't seen before. So one was the 54-yard touchdown. That was open running, and that was great. But it was the closer in touchdown where he had to kind of plow through to get it. That was important to me. That checked off a lot of boxes. It's also the percentage of time that he's playing and sort of the confidence that comes with playing how he is now. There's still another step, and that is that now they can't get too excited about what they've seen and totally unleash it, because it is a 17-game season, and you go back and you look at some of the players who've had this and they start looking great, and then the workload accelerates too much too fast. So I would just say, let's watch what happens against Dallas next week. It's going to be very interesting. But I am happy for Saquon as an athlete because you're seeing him check all these boxes.
To me, the key here is, does the passing game usage continue, especially once they get Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard back, right? Because that's the key. Because, I mean, even as great as he was yesterday, still didn't have 60 yards rushing. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's the passing game usage the last 2 games that has really made Saquon back to, like, Saquon.
Right.
But that's
But we're
part of his
seeing-
fantasy. Right. As long as that continues, we're good. But you never know. I mean, listen, they turned Alvin Kamara into Nick Chubb.
Right.
One of the best passing catching running backs in the NFL.
Totally. We have seen so many running backs that are normally outstanding pass catchers trending downwards in terms of their usage. Meanwhile, some guys that we haven't talked about as frequently as pass catchers, like Derrick Henry, are trending upwards. Good to see Saquon Barkley looking like the old Saquon. One more here.
Yeah, another guy that's starting to get some pass catching work.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who a little bit yesterday, he had 2 catches, 114 total yards, a touchdown. It was a receiving touchdown. I believe Patrick Mahomes threw 2 he threw 5 in total, but I think he threw 2 that traveled 0 air yards total because they were basically little scoop passes at the goal line. So another solid week here. I'm starting to buy into this from CEH a little bit. Now, a couple things to note, Matthew, is I think we all saw yesterday, Darrell Williams still got a goal line touchdown. He had 12 total touches. So it's like the path to like elite RB1 upside for Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still, there's still a few blockades along the way, but back-to-back weeks for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and a little bit more usage in the passing game, some good indicators here.
Really good indicators there. By the way, played in a league where I had Travis Kelce, played against Patrick Mahomes. 5 touchdowns. None of them to Travis Kelce. Good times. It's a lot of fun. I'm on to Cincinnati. Anyway, the point here is that I thought CEH, like I feel better about CEH today than I think I have all season.
I agree.
I just looks better. They're involving him more. The offensive line looks good. They're getting creative with him. He is not, this would have not happened on every NFL team, but on the Chiefs, 2 fumbles, including a back-breaking one against the Ravens, has not been held against him. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I'll say here is that if you are later in your waiver wire and you're like, again, we'll see what happens with some of these running back injuries that Stephania talked about at the top of the show. But, if Joe Mixon and David Montgomery are going to miss some time, and so you're like, Damian Williams gets picked up and Samaje Perine gets picked up, and you're sitting there towards the end of your waivers or you're out of fab budget, whatever it is, and you're looking for sort of a running back stash, I think Darrell Williams needs to be rostered in a lot more leagues because it's clear that they trust him on the goal line. So I think there's some really deep league value for him. But more importantly, I think that unlike a lot of situations, there is a 1-for-1. That if anything were to happen to CEH, Darrell Williams would get the majority of work. You'd see some little Jerick McKinnon, whatever. But Darrell Williams is somebody they like a lot in Kansas City. And again, having the lead running back of the Chiefs is normally a good thing. So I think he needs to be rostered in a lot more leagues.
I'll give you 3 quarterbacks and ask you whether any of them or all of them need to be rostered in 10-team leagues. The one is Sam Darnold, who has 25-plus fantasy points in consecutive games. And get this, he leads the NFL with 5 rushing touchdowns. He's the first quarterback ever with 5 rushing touchdowns in his team's first 4 games to begin a season. Taylor Heineke, who back-to-back games now has 20-plus fantasy points. And then Daniel Jones, who has 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of 4 games this season. Each of them is available in at least 2/3 of leagues, Matthew. In some ways, the numbers say, hey, you should pick one of these players up. In other ways, the fact that we're talking about 3 players who are not roster locks in 10-team leagues tells you that, you can't pick them up, but you could also just grab somebody else because there are so many comparable quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, I think that's the correct case there.
Do you think?
So, go ahead.
Sorry. Do you think that Sam Darnold is like Ryan Tannehill light, like after he got unleashed, and at this point he's Ryan Tannehill?
He's my favorite of those 3.
Yeah, we fought
Sam
for a
Darnold's
long
my favorite
time.
of those 3 fantasy wise.
I could make the case for Daniel Jones, to be honest with you, only because
the
I think
rushing.
the best rushing upside out of those 3, 5 touchdowns in 4 games for Sam Darnold, is crazy.
Crazy.
But I'm with you.
Patterson-esque.
Yeah, it is. It is very Patterson-esque. Trade him for Josh Jacobs. But I would just say this, is that, Sam Darnold has also looked the best out of those 3, I think, just eye test-wise, right?
Yeah, and
Danny Dimes has been better, no doubt, but still has some Danny Dimes moments. And then Heineke, he's
a baller.
He's your line by hook or by crook, right?
Yeah.
He gets it done.
He does get it done, but it's, they've got a tough schedule coming up, Washington football team. I love Heineke. By the way, that win against Atlanta, that was all the offense, that was all Heineke. They gutted it out. Defense was brutal once again. Brutal, couldn't tackle, awful. And, again, they gave up 3 touchdowns to Cordero Patterson. Bad tackling on the Mike Davis touchdown, too. Just brutal defense. They got some bad calls, too. But whatever. Heineke just gutted that one out. Legit gutted that one out.
Awesome.
And so I like Heineke a lot. And I don't think his fantasy production is a fluke. I think all these guys should be rostered in deeper leagues. I just of the 3, I think Sam Darnold, I have the most confidence in that offensive system to produce fantasy points. And I like his weapons, especially if we're getting McCaffrey back here in 2 games. I just like the weapons in Carolina more than the weapons in Washington and New York, although both teams have good offensive weapons. The Giants obviously at full health obviously do, and Washington, fingers crossed on Logan Thomas. But listen, the defense has shown the Washington football team is not going to be able to grind out any wins. They're going to have to be chucking it all over the place.
More to come on these players tomorrow, but let's quickly move to something or nothing. I think some of these guys might be waiver wire targets as well. Darnell Mooney against the Lions yesterday had 5 catches on 7 targets for 125 yards. That's a career high. The speedy Darnell Mooney now has 5 or more catches in 3 of 4 games this season, Matthew. Is this something? Is this nothing? Or is he really just the kind of player that is nice to have on your bench, but not yet at the point where he needs to be starting?
I think it's just to answer the question, I think it's something. I don't know that he necessarily needs to be rostered in a 10-team league. I think it depends on sort of your needs. There's a lot of guys, there are a lot of wide receivers that we like, that are available, right? But I'll just say that one of the hallmarks of Justin Fields coming out of college was really good deep ball accuracy. And so a guy like Darnell Mooney has insane speed and can get open. That was as somebody who had Mooney last year in our War Room League, it would always drive me crazy because you would watch Mooney get open and then Trubisky or Foles would either underthrow him or would be wide by like 6 yards, and you just see like Mooney was getting the targets and they just couldn't connect. So if Fields has sort of found his footing, and while there were still rough spots yesterday, I thought he looked obviously a lot better than he did against Cleveland. And by the way, credit to the Browns defense, because the Browns made Kirk Cousins, who'd been red hot so far, Kirk Cousins looked very, very average yesterday as well. So maybe just the Browns defense is a lot better than we give him credit for. But yeah, I do think Darnell Mooney is closer to something than nothing.
Let's keep it moving here, pick up the pace a little bit as well. A.J. Green had 5 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown yesterday for the Cardinals. Back-to-back games with at least 13 fantasy points for A.J. Green. Something or nothing.
I want to say both. And here's why. Like, I think it's legit, right? I mean, to your point, right? I mean, back double-digit fantasy points now in 3 straight games. He's had at least 6 targets in every game so far this year. He's averaging 16.5 yards per catch this season. Certainly a lot better than he was last week. And just being on the field on that offense with Kyler Murray, which is as hot as offense as there is in the NFL, good things can happen. So I want to say something to all those points. Having said that, it just feels like, whatever. Christian Kirk did nothing yesterday, and Rondell Moore did nothing, and it was a quiet game once again for DeAndre Hopkins. That's not going to continue. And you see Max Williams, and I feel like it's going to be like the Arizona pass catchers this year are going to be like Patriots running backs. Like every week, there's going to be at least 2 Arizona pass catchers that go off, and trying to predict which 2 those guys are is going to be really, really tough, right? Because, again, like we've seen Christian Kirk's got a multiple touchdown game so far this year. Rondell Moore is blown up, and DeAndre Hopkins is capital letters DeAndre Hopkins. And then you've also got 2 good running backs in Chase Edmonds and James Conner. Kyler Murray is always a threat to run it in from 50 yards with his legs. Like, it's a loaded offense, which is amazing, and Max Williams has suddenly become a thing. So yes, A.J. Green is something, but I also want to say it's nothing because let me put it this way with A.J. Green. It's one of those things that if you're going to roster him, then you just got to start him and not think about it. Like, he's not a guy that you're going to be able to pick, like, this is a good matchup for him and this isn't. Because I think it's just sort of like, it's just whoever's turn it is in a given week. Does that make any sense?
Pass catcher carousel in that offense.
They have a lot of weapons there. Credit to the Cardinals front office. But, I don't think Christian Kirk is going to have less than 2 fantasy points going forward every game, which is what he had yesterday.
This is the week of add and stash players, right? There are a couple must-adds, like Damian Williams, we think has a legit role, assuming he's healthy, and David Montgomery's going to miss probably some period of time. Samaje Perine, the same thing until Joe Mixon returns.
Trey Lance, I would argue.
Maybe. I mean, it's still in a 10-team league, though, right? Like, I'm not so sure. But still, the point is that, like, a lot of adds and stashes, which includes the likes of Dawson Knox, who now has 4 touchdowns in his past 3 games for the Buffalo Bills. He had 5 catches on 6 targets yesterday for 37 yards. I mean, the reality, Matthew, is that, 5 catches for 37 yards is not much to write home about. But at tight end, like, I'm adding and stashing, or maybe just adding him to replace someone like Logan Thomas, or maybe, like, I've just been down on my luck. Like, I drafted somebody that isn't Travis Kelce or Darren Waller or Mark Andrews, T.J. Hawkinson, and just sort of, hey, give it a shot, like shaking things up. Because if you drafted what if you had Gronk, that another injury you got to fill in for? There are several. Jonnu Smith, one of my favorites coming this season. Not good so far. Like, if you have Jonnu as your guy, you want to add Dawson Knox?
Absolutely. Whether you're replacing Gronk, maybe Logan Thomas, whether you want to just upgrade at tight end. You have to be a little. I know Goddard scored a touchdown, but Ertz is coming. If you look at Ertz's production,
examples of tight ends,
plenty of tight ends. So anyway, I'm a Dawson Knox believer. Really young. I think he's 23, 24. I believe this is his 3rd year in the NFL. If you go back, he actually was in my love list this week. I mean, he was in my love list last week for this weekend, right? Thank you very much. And when we talked about him during the long shot segment on Fantasy Football Now, I mentioned that was a guy that I considered. Of course, I went with a guy that scored less than Dawson Knox, but I did mention him as well. And one of the reasons why, it's now 3 straight games where he's run over 70% of the routes. And again, similar situation here is Arizona. Like, you just want a piece of that Josh Allen Buffalo Bills passing offense. And it's not like he's not like the Dallas situation where Schultz and Jarwin are splitting time a little bit, or Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, or even Ertz and Goddard on some level. Like, Dawson Knox is their guy. They like him a lot. And a couple of touchdowns have been a little fluky, sort of running around trying to find a guy, and it turns out it's Dawson Knox. But some of them were designed plays for him. He's a good pass catcher that they like a lot. He's running a ton of routes and playing a ton of snaps. And so if you're telling me a good young tight end is playing a ton of snaps and running a lot of routes with Josh Allen as his quarterback in that offense, I'm in.
Interesting stuff.
I mean, like, in our War Room League, I'll just real quickly, and then we'll move off of this. But so I picked up Dawson Knox in our War Room League last week, and I don't know if Daniel and I talked about this on the fantasy show, just BSing on the sides. And I said, I have Kelsey in that league. And they were like, why did you pick up Knox? And I'm just like, because I didn't love anyone else. And I think Knox is legitimate. And so I just wanted to grab him because now that allows me the option, if I need to, trade Kelsey, or Knox obviously has a lot of value in a 16-team league now as well. So Dawson Knox is legit. This is legit, and this is not a Johnny-come-lately thing. Again, read my love-hate from last week.
All right, let's keep things moving here, Daniel. And we're going to get to panic patients are welcome to Dumpsville. But
That's right.
Just before we do that, a word from you.
A word from me. Did you know, Field, that more than 50 million men suffer from male pattern baldness?
Why are you looking at
50 million.
Wait.
I'm looking at you.
Oh.
Because 2 out of the 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the age of 35, Field. So in the next 15 years, you're going to have to start worrying about it. Keeps offers a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair. Convenient virtual doctor consultations and medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months. You don't even have to leave your home. Low-cost treatments start at just $10 per month, and Keeps offers generic versions, discreet packaging, and proven results. Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors. Prevention is key. Treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/FFF to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/FFF to get your first month free. keeps.com/FFF.
Yeah, because if you don't start the prevention right now, Field,
Right.
this is your future.
Wow.
Yeah, I was on the podcast 15 years ago. Yeah, where were these guys when I needed them?
That's
15 years from now, I could have Dawson Knox in a 16-team fantasy league. That is awesome. All right, let's keep things moving here. This might be the most
It'll be
important part of the
38.
show.
It'll be the best 38-year-old tight end in the world.
This might be
Dawson
the most
Knox.
important part of the show. Let's play a game of panic. Patients are welcome to Dumpsville. And we'll go back and forth, Matthew. As I don't want to, we can't belabor these in the interest of time. Allen Robinson, I'll start with you. 3 catches on 3 targets for 63 yards. The Bears offense going to stick with Justin Fields until Andy Dalton is healthy and then go back to Andy Dalton. Panic, patience, Dumpsville.
I'm going to panic.
Okay, and I would presume the panic basically means like I'm benching this player until further notice, correct?
I'm trying, if I can get 75 cents on the dollar, I'm doing it, is what the panic means here. He's had 4 straight games, and he hasn't been a top 40 wide receiver.
Yep, I agree on that.
And I don't have a ton of confidence in Darnell Mooney Justin Fields. Sorry, Darnell Mooney. I don't have a ton of confidence in that offense figuring it out. Like, in a game in which Justin Fields looked decent, and they were playing the Lions, and they dominated the Lions, he still had, what did he have yesterday? 3 catches on 3 targets. 9.3 fantasy points.
Yep. All right, let's keep things moving here. Panic, patience, or Dumpsville. I will go with Brandon Ayuk in the panic column as well. Ayuk yesterday's 1 catch on 3 targets, 15 yards, 2.5 fantasy points in PPR scoring. He has 11 targets so far this season. There's a case that he belongs in the Dumpsville category. I'll keep him in panic and relegate him to my bench only because he was unbelievable for the last 6 or so games in 2020. But he's darn close to Dumpsville for me. Matthew, panic or patience on Kyle Pitts?
I'm going patience on Kyle Pitts. He's a tight end. Like, I liked how they tried. You know, he had 9 targets against Washington. Like, they tried. Came close to a touchdown in a couple of plays. Like, it's coming. They're using him. He's too talented physically, and the position is too thin to just, bail on Kyle Pitts at this point.
I'm going to go with panic, but I really wanted to say patience with Robbie Anderson here. Matthew, you and I watched the games right next to each other this season in the war room, and another bad day for Robbie Anderson, 5 catches on 11 targets.
Brutal.
But as you saw, there were some opportunities down the field for Robbie Anderson that, like, he's either running wide open and Sam Darnold just doesn't look at him.
It's awful.
Or he's running wide open and they just don't connect on it. So I want to say patience, but you have to bench him until you get something out of him.
I mean, like, to their credit, they tried to get the ball to him.
11 targets.
11 targets. But you're right. Like, it would, like, he'd fly down, and then Sam Darnold, who, like, is locked in with DJ Moore, like, throws it 10 yards away from Robbie Anderson. You're like, he was open.
Panic or patience for Robert Woods?
Panic on Robert Woods.
Really? Oh, I
Panic.
jumped the gun. Sorry.
Panic on Robert Woods.
Really? He scored a touchdown yesterday. That was good.
In junk time. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And Lindsay Theory, I don't know if you saw, we follow Lindsay Theory, who does a great job for us covering the Rams. Follow her on Twitter at Lindsay Theory. Like, she quoted something yesterday, and I quote tweeted her just about how the fact, like, he caught the ball and just basically tossed it away like it was like a piece of garbage. Like, didn't celebrate, couldn't care. It was a junk time touchdown. He's scored 2 touchdowns this year, and both have come in the last 2 minutes of the game when it was decided. Van Jefferson continues to get more looks than him. They're involving Higbee and Deshaun Jackson. Robert Woods is an afterthought in this offense, and the fact that you got some level of production out of him, great, but he is clearly disgusted. He is not on the same page with Matthew Stafford, and maybe squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, that's
because
what I'm going here.
I mean, because he was a lot of reporters that cover the Rams, including Lindsay Theory, including Sam Farmer, who does a great job for the LA Times, noted how visibly upset Robert Woods was after the game. And previous to this, hey, you're 3-0, hard to really complain. I'm not getting the ball enough, but hey, we're winning as a team. But when you get blown out, and make no mistake, they got blown out by Arizona. Like, that game wasn't as close as the final score, and the final score wasn't close. Like, Arizona dominated them. Then maybe things start to change. But I'm nervous because Stafford, by the way, Stafford looked bad yesterday. Like, I don't know what it is, but him and Robert Woods ain't on the same page, and it feels like there's Cooper Kupp, and then there's another tier, and so I guess you got to stay with him because I don't know what you can do with him, but I'm nervous about Robert Woods.
I'm going to keep things moving here, and if I could, I mean, there is no column on this touchscreen for those that are watching right now for Dumpsville. Well, Myles Gaskins, welcome to Dumpsville, man.
Sure.
He played 12 snaps yesterday, and
Yeah.
Myles Gaskin is not ceding carries or snaps to some rookie, some upstart player, some guy that's got promise that you think, oh, man, like, wow, this guy could be the future of our backfield at some point going forward. Myles Gaskin's not 32 years old. Myles Gaskin's in his 3rd pro season.
Yeah.
He's losing snaps to Malcolm Brown and Savon Ahmed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just as, like, run-of-the-mill running backs.
Yeah.
Welcome to Dumpsville, man. One of the biggest, most disappointing busts so far of this season is Myles Gaskin, 0.3 fantasy points yesterday. Matthew, panic or patience with Miles Sanders?
This one's a tough one for me because, to me, this is what Miles Sanders is. This is why I was down on him in the preseason. That's why I was down on him last year. Everyone argues with me on Miles
Hold
Sanders.
on. This is not what he is. He's been much more involved in previous years than this. He's got 7 rushes yesterday.
He had 2 the week before.
He had 9 carries in 2 games. He's been way busier than this in years
They don't
past.
like him. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
It doesn't seem like they like him.
Okay, but in your most pessimistic view, you were not thinking.
No,
hey,
I didn't think. I didn't think he would have. I didn't think a healthy Miles Sanders would have single-digit carries
Correct.
total over a 2-game stretch.
Correct.
I did not.
Right.
But
So he's got a panic then.
know that the Eagles don't fully like him. I did know that, like, that they don't
putting
trust
in
him to be a
panic
bell
for you.
cow. Yeah, good.
Good.
Like,
All right.
I'm like, but to me, it's like, this is what you drafted. I don't know. You have to sort of be patient, I guess. But, like, I would, yeah. I mean, like,
Oofa.
I've been
Oofa.
panicking on Miles Sanders for 2 years, and everyone argues with me online. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, guys. Like, it is what it is.
Look at this. These
I
guys.
have 15. I have 15 teams. You know what? I have
He's
15 teams, and I have 0 Miles Sanders.
Look at this, though.
Because I
Stefan.
know.
He's got people arguing with him online. He's got 21-year-old kids chirping him drunk
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
phone.
It feels so
Jalen
personal.
Waddle,
I
it does.
know.
Brandon
I just
Cooks,
want to be left alone.
panic or
Why-
patience?
Careful.
Stop. I do. I want to be left alone.
Let's be honest. It's clearly, I mean, it's patience for Brandon Cooks. He's wide receiver 9
come
of the
on,
season.
stop
Tough matchup this week coming up against the Patriots. Yesterday was a tough day at the office. Davis Mills clearly overmatched, but you're patient with Brandon Cooks.
Yes, sir.
And panic, patience, or Dumpsville for Tyson Williams.
I think it's got to be Dumpsville.
Yeah, I agree. He didn't play yesterday. For those that
was
may
a
have
healthy
missed it,
scratch.
Tyson
Weird.
Williams was a healthy scratch. Latavius Murray ended up as the starter, and he scored a touchdown yesterday. But they all look bad. That Ravens backfield's like a stay away to me right now. They did rush for over 100 yards yesterday. You have any thoughts on that? Did you see what happened at the end of that game or no?
No.
I
They
did.
the
kept
Ravens
Lamar
have a
Jackson in
streak.
for a run.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
yes,
wanted
yes,
to match
yes.
the streak.
They wanted the streak, and so
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson does with a game well in hand.
Right.
They do a dumb run around the edge for Lamar Jackson to break the streak, and
Not to break the streak, to keep the streak
keep
alive.
the streak
Keep the-
alive.
Yeah.
You've lost J.K. Dobbins, you've lost Gus Edwards, like unbelievably stupid, but it worked out for them. Lamar Jackson healthy, good.
For
But
now.
like it's
For
yeah,
now.
that was dumb.
All right.
That was dumb.
I'm gonna
I gotta-
bite my tongue
just-
before it says it, but I don't want to say. Daniel,
You want
let's
to whisper in my ear and I'll say it because
No,
I
definitely
don't
not.
care.
No.
Let's we do a quick Monday Night Football segment.
Let's do
Daniel?
Monday Night Football.
Okay. Monday Night Football expectations presented by Geico. Whether you rent or own, Geico makes it easy to bundle home and car insurance. Go to geico.com today. Stephania, Matthew mentioned it earlier. He thinks Josh Jacobs is going to play. What do you think?
Well, I think that the Raiders want him to play, and it sounds like the plan is for him to play. But ultimately, the concern that the Raiders have is if he steps on the field, they don't want it to be like you're there, you go a couple snaps, you go one series, you go one drive, and then your ankle X up again, and then you're out. And then we've had this player on the roster who wasn't able to finish the game. So I think really what it comes down to is confidence that he will be able to get through the game. And I guess we're going to find out. But it sounds like the plan is for him to try and go.
Okay. The plan is for hopefully for us to see Josh Jacobs tonight. If not, of course, it would be Peyton Barber.
They love Peyton Barber.
Can we just talk about the most important part?
I'm glad you know that.
Yeah.
Not everyone on the show does, but I'm
I'm
glad
just saying.
Stephania,
I just
you
heard
understand.
They love him because of not only what he does running, but pass protection and
Yeah.
things like that. It's
All right.
not just
Sure.
fantasy purposes.
No doubt about that. By the way, Mike Williams celebrates a birthday today. You got to figure he goes off. Darren Waller's been a little bit quiet since week one. Can he get over 15 or so fantasy points? That is a big question mark. But most importantly, the most important thing that you could be watching for in this game is this. As things presently stand,
Yes.
in our Survivor League, which
Correct.
for those that have not been paying attention, we are in an 18 team that's been whittled down to 15 teams.
Correct.
Survivor League. And what happens is
And what happens at the end of after the lowest scoring team at every week ends up getting cut from the league. And
All their
that
players.
person's players all get released in the free agent pool. And so you just keep going throughout the season until there's only one remaining team. So a 15th team. So we've been doing it now for 4 weeks. And so we'll be down to 14 teams after tonight. And going into Monday night, it is down to 2 people. It is going to be one of 2 people that
is
get
right.
cut.
And one of those 2 people is me, who up to this point had been the second highest scoring team
Wow.
in the league.
You have a good team in this league.
So, but my team this week just completely cratered. So my team, which is Tom Brady, Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders, CeeDee Lamb, Jacoby Myers, Kyle Pitts, Kenny Galladay, Cortland Sutton has 79.56
cow.
points.
I mean,
so
CeeDee
far.
Lamb was crazy. Like CeeDee
ridiculous,
Lamb,
right?
I thought Brady would have a monster game
Of
too,
course,
right? You know,
yeah.
Sanders getting how little work he got, also
Meanwhile,
insane.
Kevin Pulsifer, who is an incredible researcher here at ESPN, helps us out with Fantasy Football Now, the fantasy show. He is a great bracketologist for college
Yes.
basketball.
Yes. You should give him a follow on Twitter. I am Pulsitivity, I think it is.
I think it is.
But it's
Look it up,
I
Dan.
am, not no A. I think it's
I'm
Pulsitivity. Right.
Okay.
So, anyways.
Anyway, Kevin Pulsifer does a great job for us, a very valued member of the fantasy department here at ESPN, does a ton of great research for us behind the scenes. And by the way, I will also say, a very skilled fantasy player. As somebody who has been, I've been in a number of leagues with him. I'm pretty sure Pulsifer won this league last year.
Accurate.
He did.
Yeah, he won this league last year, which is why I am hoping he's the one eliminated tonight.
Oh, that's okay.
I want you feel it's no fun if you're not in it. I want you in this league.
18.8 fantasy points tonight from Austin Eckler. Who
Right.
would you rather be in this situation, me or him?
I think I would rather be him. 18.8 is a lot, but I do think Eckler is such a rock star.
The Raiders defense has been good.
I will
It's
just say
hard.
this: it's going to be really close, but I think I'd rather be him, and here's why. I always like rooting for players to do something than rooting against players to not do
I'm
anything.
100% with you. I always like to have
Right.
at least an out somewhere.
Right. So I would rather watch that game rooting for Austin Eckler to go off than I would watching please don't give it to Austin Eckler.
Right,
which is
right.
what you're going to have to be doing
It's gonna be
tonight.
so
How many
brutal
does he
tonight.
need, Field, did you say?
18.8.
By the way, his Twitter handle, he just texted us to make sure this is clear. Like impulsivity, the word,
Impulsivity.
add an E after the S. Play on his name.
Pulse.
Yeah.
Pulsifer.
Yes.
Tivity.
Yes.
Austin Eckler,
Impulsivity. All right.
18 fantasy points in week 2, 19.7 fantasy points in week 3, and the big thing in both of those weeks started finally getting targets after that quiet week 1.
Sorry, I blacked out for a second.
I think it's going to be tough. However, Matthew, I do find it odd. I would just always choose to be Field every day of the week, no matter what the question is. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be honest
So
there.
nice.
Fair.
Nice
I
to
was just saying I was putting myself in the situation of that particular thing
Oh, I'd
because I'm
rather
just
be
like, here's the
Paul's
thing,
100 times
because
here.
I got to tell you, my team also cratered in this league. I mean, like, Dak Prescott, DeAndre Swift, T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah, the two
I-
highest scoring teams in the
Oh,
league.
yeah, you are a
I am
Lions-heavy
the
team.
highest scoring team in the league, and yet my team just absolutely
You're finishing third.
It
yeah,
doesn't
from the
matter.
bottom. Some other
so-
second
but-
or first.
Doesn't
anyway,
matter
so
how
I
much
was-
you score, you just don't. You can't be last.
That's right.
You can't be the lowest.
Exactly, that's the point. But my
You get no
my whole
bonus
team
points.
like just was absolutely brutal as well. Yeah, Hawkinson and Swift had bad games. Cole Beasley had a brutal game. Anyway, but the reason what I'm telling you here. Oh, Kamara, and I have Kamara in that league too. So
So one more thing on Alvin Kamara.
no, but I was
Real quick.
so I know coming into Sunday Night Football was the three of us, me, Field, and Kevin Pulsifer, and I knew what Field needed from Brady and Jacoby Myers
Of course,
to pass
Jacoby
me.
Myers is my strong player. That
And so I was watching that last night's game on pins and needles, like no Brady, no Myers, and I was just like, please miss that field goal, please miss that field goal at the end, because I knew if Brady got the ball back,
yeah.
I was losing because I barely beat Field.
Right.
So it's just like that's nerve wracking rooting against players.
Yeah.
like it was just like every time. Myers would catch a ball. Like now they're letting him throw it. What's going? And so that's no fun.
You know who's in this room who's either not eliminated or not worried about tonight?
Listen, check them out. Survivor leagues are so much fun. We talk about it because they're a blast,
They
not
are
just
fun.
fun.
They
They are so much fun to do with your friends.
The sweat is real.
It's
There's no
real.
question.
You can still start one right now if you go to ESPN Fantasy. You can start one now with the right amount of people. We're just telling you, it's a blast.
Yeah, it certainly is. We are back
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Find a league with one more week than you need.
Yes.
basically that's
That's all
what
you
it
need.
is.
We're back tomorrow to talk about all sorts of things, including a Monday Night Football recap. Hopefully, I will be in that Survivor League still, but no guarantee on that. Plus, the waiver wire pickups that you need to know for Matthew and Daniel, and of course, Stephania. I'm Field. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Peace out. Good luck.